Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes to allow a few more folks to hop on. All right, it is 10:01, so I think we'll go ahead and get started now. So hello, everyone. Thanks so much for your time today. We're super excited to have you guys join this webinar and discuss some PSA insights and best practices. So I'm Lindsay Doucette. I'm the head of alliances at Provus, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. Just a few housekeeping items. So we will be recording this webinar, so we'll make sure to send it to you guys in follow-up. And then we definitely want to get to any questions that you guys do have. So feel free to write those out in the chat throughout this, and we'll make sure to get to those at the end. If we don't get to them for some reason, we'll make sure to follow up with you and ensure that all your questions are answered. But with that, we'll start off with some introductions on our speakers today. So we have Mahesh Baxi. So he is co-founder and CEO at Provus. He is a proven leader with over 20 years in the quote-to-cash domain, passionate about solving complex enterprise business problems, and obsessed with customer success. Mahesh is a serial entrepreneur and visionary. He brings a wealth of experience in the services coding domain. And also, what you may not know is he is a published author, avid speaker, and an amateur Bollywood singer. And we also have Ronn Breaux, and Ron is CEO of TopStep and a well-known in the professional services industry with 18 years of experience working with clients to create business efficiencies. And Ron is also obsessed with helping clients solve complex service challenges by aligning processes and software solutions. And then just a little bit about each company if you're not familiar with Provus or TopStep. So Provus, we are an AI-led services quoting cloud that is transforming the services lead to cash process. Provus is a purpose-built tool that really helps our customers optimize their services sales process with robust capabilities to help customers eliminate spreadsheets or homegrown solutions that rely on super manual tasks that tend to be error-prone and time-consuming. And our end-to-end automation platform really helps to streamline the entire services sales cycle. We also are an SDN partner of NetSuite, and both of our PSA integrations are listed on the Suite app, so integrations with OpenAir and Suite projects. And then you can see a few of our customers listed here, with TopStep being one of them. And then we are backed by Norwest, Excel, and Storm Ventures investors. Ron, I'll let you fill in a little bit about TopStep.
Sure. Thanks, Lindsay. Hi, everyone. So TopStep is a 15-year-old consulting firm. We were born out of the need for professional service consulting. We aligned our services with the OpenAir PSA product. Once NetSuite bought OpenAir, we became NetSuite partners and remained focused and loyal to OpenAir as a PSA. So we are a team of 20 plus OpenAir PSA consultants spread around North America. However, we have customers globally and working with customers to solve complex problems around their PSA and helping with implementations, as well as integrating their PSA with all their other tools. So we're excited to be part of today's discussion.
Awesome. All right, so now into the fun stuff. So just want to start off, Mahesh, so the services industry is expected to experience significant growth over the next few years. Given such growth expectations, what are the key predictions for the services industries as we get into 2024?
Yeah, that's a great way to kick off this webinar, Lindsay. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for everyone who is listening live on this webinar. And Thanksgiving is right around the corner, so in advance, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. The question about predictions, and the reason I mentioned about Thanksgiving, that's almost end of the year, so we are ready to kick off 2024. And we like to kind of go through these predictions, watch those predictions, see some of those happen and how they happen and stuff like that. So more about that. But back to the question, what are the kind of key predictions when it comes to services industry and how services industries are operating? There are three key predictions we have. Number one is in the coming years, customers will want to connect the services coding and PSA systems. Now, PSAs have been around for kind of long time, but the services coding is kind of an evolving space. The problem has been there for decades. However, the solutions which are more configurable, more scalable, more enterprise ready from all different aspects to cater to the needs of services coding, the agility that's needed, the way you do, configure your services from a sales perspective, from a coding perspective. I think all of those things are kind of evolving. And, most of the time we see all of this scoping, estimation, all of those activities kind of happening on an Excel spreadsheet. So as we go along, we'll talk more about why this prediction, why we are making this prediction in terms of customers wanting to connect the services coding and PSS systems. But the number two, which is the key for what's going to happen and transpire in 2024, which is we believe that AI will rule the services coding world. What we mean by that is following, right? We see that 95% of the organizations that we talk to are using Excel spreadsheets for their services coding needs. AI is mainstream now. The AI technologies are real. I mean, I know all of us have been hearing AI for last 10, 12 years, and the technologies were just not there. It was more of a buzzword, but this time around, AI technologies are kind of very real. And so, as organizations start to automate their services coding journey, connect those with the PSA systems, this is like a data mine that everyone wants. I mean, already customers are talking about all kinds of outcomes that they want. However, the kind of taking the crawl, walk, run approach, customers are not even ready to crawl yet. They are wanting the outcome of AI engines and the data mine that they sit in terms of the PSAs and services coding and stuff like that. So I think that's going to be an ongoing kind of challenge and a want from the organizations, and we believe that it's absolutely here to now change how we do the coding and how we do resource forecasting and the PSA and revenue forecasting, all of that kind of stuff. More about that. The third one related to that is really the resource and revenue forecasting will take center stage. Not that it hasn't, but what we mean by that is, on one side, the services organizations are growing. The number of services that one can offer or one can consume is only going up. At the same time, the overall global supply of people who can actually provide these services, we are predominantly talking about all kinds of technology services, is really shrinking. And the organizations who are starting to take a view of, what are you selling, how are you selling, and what do you have currently going on? What does it mean for, the visibility into resources, visibility into the projects, visibility into, what you are quoting, which resources are you quoting, what's the overall project ramp that looks like? And then you combine all of that across so many different parameters. It could be across the different practices you have, different geos that you have, all kinds of stuff, right? And now you are starting to combine the two by connecting the services coding and PSA and say, now the resource and revenue forecasting that you are looking at is very, very real, very futuristic. It allows you to make decisions, meaningful decisions on the fly, which otherwise is just nowhere to be found today, right? So those are the three key predictions. And on back of this, we believe that organizations who do services coding will just change drastically in the coming year, if not years.
Mhm. That's some great insight. And then can you just elaborate a little bit more on how the services quoting will drastically change in the coming years?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, right, 95% of the organizations that we talk to are using Excel spreadsheet-based automation. Now, Excel is a great tool. It gives a great deal of flexibility, but it doesn't scale. It doesn't, any process that you are relying on Excel spreadsheet comes with its own challenges as organizations scale at an enterprise level, geo levels, all of that kind of stuff, right? And so what we are seeing and what we will see in the coming year, what we mean by services quoting will drastically change is really organizations are starting to acquire and organize the services quoting data, right? That's part of our framework that we, part of the best practices that we tell the customers, like, Excel sheet is not how you organize and acquire the data, especially when you are thinking futuristically of applying latest AI technologies. You cannot just rely on Excel spreadsheet based data. And so the first, kind of a crawl approach here that organizations will start taking is to start acquiring and organizing the data in a more meaningful way. And how you do those, services quoting right from your scope discovery to the estimate to the quote, all of that will start coming together in a more systematic way. Now, because that's coming in a systematic way, all of the latest, and, as we start connecting the dots between how you are selling and how you are executing in the PSA, now we start to bring everything together, right? The services organizations would want to see, like, when I'm selling, what I'm selling, can I even deliver that? Can I commit to a start date? The resources that I'm aligning towards, do I even have availability of those resources, right? None of those things traditionally are available real time for the sellers to make any decisions. This is where our AI technologies come in. This is where we see that the services quoting, the way organizations do, will absolutely drastically change in 2024.
Mhm. So Ron, what are some key automation must-haves in your opinion?
Well, we work with lots of customers in the service industry, and we hear the same theme and goals, right? They all want visibility of the data. They all want repeatable processes. With the global shortage of resources and skills that we keep hearing that is coming, you have to be efficient, but you also have to be set up for growth and to be able to expand your tools, expand your processes, expand your systems. So making sure that you have a sound PSA strategy when you're implementing a PS solution, you have to keep those goals in mind. So you really focus. And the visibility of data includes not just the data in your professional service system, but across the platforms that the system relies on to communicate with. And a big part of that is the quoting process, your financial systems, your HR systems, and lots of other ancillary tools we see customers connecting to. And this is really just to enhance visibility. It's to automate, creating those efficiencies. So investing in tools that reduce the amount of hand entering data. Excel, we call ourselves Excel killers, not that we don't love the tool, but we try to minimize the tool because of its inherent, manual processes. And it's also a lot of errors can occur when you're doing that sort of manual entry. So, having those end-to-end system-wide visibility is really key to our customers as we engage with them on their PSA journey.
Got it. So on the back of services quoting automation and how organizations sells and deliver services, resource and revenue forecasting will take center stage. Ron, what are the challenges that companies are facing related to resource and revenue forecasting for services?
Well, when you implementing a PSA tool in and of itself, a big part of that process is how are we going to manage our resource teams? How do we know how many resources we have available? And how do we forecast the future based on those resourcing requirements? And that is great and it's key. And if you can really do that well, you really have reached a new level of maturity as an organization. However, if you're not including what's in your sales pipeline, if you're not including the selling process in that view of the data, you're kind of not getting the whole picture. So while you're focusing on the future of your existing projects that are signed SOWs, but meanwhile, upstream, you're selling more projects, more work. Can you deliver? When can you deliver? Do you have do you have to hire? Do you need to go subcontract? Those are key elements of the thinking process that are needed to have a truly successful, mature organization that can make sure if they're making commitments to customers, they have the resource availability and they have the right information when they're working on the next deal.
So it seems that the deal-making system such as Provus and the project execution system such as OpenAir PSA are disconnected. What are the benefits of connecting the two systems, Mahesh?
Yeah, I think not only they're disconnected, I think, the crawl, walk, run approach, the organizations who are sitting on the fence, and, I love what Ron said about Excel killers. I think the organizations who are sitting on the fence about, hey, should I make the move towards automation for services coding? I think if you have already not done so and not thinking or haven't taken the decision, I think now is the time. You are going to be left behind compared to your peer group, your competition, all of that stuff, right? If you don't really make that move. But assuming that you have made a commitment to actually make the move from Excel-based automation to the real services coding automation like Provus and PSA such as OpenAir, I think it's not. It's important to make the automation work, but what's more critical, which is, I'm now talking about the walk approach, right? The crawl is to make sure that you start implementing those or have implemented those systems. The walk is really, how do you connect the systems, and why would you want to connect the two systems in the first place? I mean, there are a number of benefits in the interest of time. I'll talk about a few that we see all the time from the customers. So number one is automation. We all understand the benefits of automation. You have services coding system. You are going through the entire scope discovery, your work breakdown structure, your resources, your rate cards, your negotiations, your pricing structure. All of that stuff in the sales process as part of the quoting is all something that you have that brings you consistency, that brings you accuracy, that allows you to ensure that what you are selling is not based on the tribal knowledge of a salesperson, but it's more structured, and system is looking at the data and asking questions, and there's a guided selling, right? All of that stuff. So it brings a tremendous amount of benefit to in the organization from a consistency, accuracy, and kind of making sure that what you are selling has been maximized based on your past experience and how you've set up your guided selling and stuff like that. But the number two, as Ron was saying, it's a 360-degree view of resource forecasting. This is like number one challenge in majority of the organizations, both at the time of selling and both at the time of resource planning, allocation, and all of that stuff. There's no system which tells me that, hey, I have 100 deals in the pipe and I have 50 projects that I'm executing. What's the combined view of these 150 projects? Do I even have project managers available for next 3 months? Because the 100 deals I'm selling, I need 25 project managers or 50 project managers, right? No one has that view. So connecting the two systems starts giving you that 360-degree visibility into all sorts of resource forecasting. It can be by location, it can be by role, it can be by skills, it can be however you want to do your pricing or attributes that add up to the pricing, right? So that's extremely critical. And on back of that, it allows you to take proactive actions into resource allocation and hiring. Now, if I'm a seller, I can start looking into like, I don't have any resources available, so maybe I should proactively push the date out or start negotiating differently. And if I'm a resource allocation person, and I'm now seeing that, hey, not only the 50 projects that I'm executing, but the 100 others that are coming my way in the next 3 months, what is it that I should be doing from either hiring perspective, as Ron said, or maybe partner with someone or somehow make these resources available, right? The number 4 in my mind is, and which is most important for sellers and for the organization, is really driving actionable insights during the deal making process. What do I mean by that? most of the time when you are making a deal, you know what the scope looks like, what does the work breakdown structure looks like, and there's a set of resources that you are projecting. But nowhere in that sales cycle, any system is telling you that, oh, by the way, this is like $1 million project, but you have 50 people coming on bench next month. So maybe you should dial down your discounting or dial up your discounting because you want to be aggressive. But hey, I'm selling $1 million deal, and you have deficit in your resources, and you can't possibly find any resources in the next 2 months. Maybe you dial up or dial down your discounting and say, hey, I'm going to stick to my margins. I'm going to stick to the price that I've given you because, that's the market conditions, right? I mean, not that you tell that to the customer, but, it allows you to make real-time, meaningful decisions, while making the deal, right? Of course, it provides a significantly better customer experience because now everything that you have scoped automatically turns into a project within PSAs, and you start allocating and tracking and all the good stuff that we do in PSA, right? But the most important benefit of connecting all of this is the AI technologies, right? Again, I'm going to so the walk we talked about, crawl. The walk is to make sure we automate and connect. Now the run is really where the AI technologies come in and say, okay, you sold 100 deals, you have executed 200 deals. How do we marry the two and say, how do you do you even know what your sold margins was and what your realized margins was, and how do you make sure that you are coming up with the actionable insights real time during the deal making process to say, oh, by the way, in 100 projects that you've executed, that integration phase, you are estimating at 100 hours, but you have always taken 250 hours, and that's why your realized margin is always 10 points lower, right? Just making it up. But all those kinds of meaningful insights is where the AI engine starts coming in. When you connect the two systems, when you kind of automate the entire process right from your first call with the customers in terms of scope discovery all the way to the backend systems, right? So those are the real benefits, and customers are craving for it. To describe in different words than what Ron said, there has been front office all along. There has been back office which includes PSA for a decade or so, and where we are coming in is the middle office, giving you the lead to cash enablement for your services business, right? That's where the focus is going to be in 2024 and in coming years, in our opinion.
So just several key benefits there. You convinced me right away after those couple. So that's awesome. Thanks for that. And then Ron, what are some of the best practices when it comes to implementing PSAs?
Well, you can't think of a PSA as a standalone tool any longer. Organizations that are implementing a PSA and making the investment, but doing it as a standalone tool, you're going to get left behind your competitors. You've got to look at your PSA as a key component of your end-to-end quote-to-cash process. And too often we run into customers where their PSA organization, their service organization needs a tool, so they're going to go find a tool, but the finance folks aren't behind it, or the sales folks don't care. And you get these siloed systems that work for individuals, but are not connected and are not giving you the full power of what your investment is. And you've really got to make investment to connect those systems. I mean, that's just the second thing we want to see, is connecting those systems really gives you that artificial intelligence opportunity, the KPIs that services organizations require, the detailed data outputs that are needed. They have to flow seamlessly from your sales system, your quoting system, and your PSA all the way into your financial system, and in order to gain critical insight. And also say, you can't forget about the sales piece of the equation. And too often that's what we see, is where maybe the CFO is pushing for a PSA, which we love when that happens, because that means you've got a system that is going to work within the organization and is being brought in to basically a PSA I call it a handshake. It's a handshake between service organization and finance, where they work together. Well, there's a hand missing in that, right? If you're not including the sales handshake in part of this, you're missing a great opportunity to really bring all that data into a seamless environment. And so I would say from a 3 takeaways, it's your PSA can't be in a bubble. Make sure it's connected to all your key systems, and make sure you are emphasizing the full flow of data between your sales and quote to the cash process.
Awesome. So with that, how should organizations be assessing their own automation readiness and maturity as they evolve on their journey? Mahesh, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, I think, and would love to hear Ron's thought on that as well. But I think, from our perspective, like I said, many organizations are still on Excel spreadsheets, but within that also we see various levels of maturity, and similar to crawl, walk, run, there are different maturity levels that we see in the organization. And those maturity levels, I mean, it probably can take another hour to if we talk about all of the levels that we track. But I think the key questions or indicators that we typically see or ask in the organization is like, hey, do you have a consistent and accurate scoping and estimation process across organization? Very rarely we get answer as yes. Second indicator is like, oh, do you use Excel or Google Sheet based processes or Google Sheets to basically conduct the scoping sessions, right? And again, 95% of the time that answer is yes, right? Do you often find missing scope in the SOW to be the reason for change orders? Now, as we all know, in any services that organizations provide, scope is the foundation for everything. If your scope is not accurately done, very quickly, when rubber hits the road, you are going to go to the customer and say, oops, sorry, here is a change order. Here is, we missed the scope. And customer will say, well, you didn't ask that, and we thought this was included, and there you go. The journey starts from there, right? So it's very important that you have thought about, what's in the scope, what's not in the scope, in its entirety and accuracy, right? So all of those kind of indicators. Most of the time, the approval process is on emails, and if you ask from a compliance standpoint, like, hey, if you were audited, do you have all of your approvals in one place? And most of the time, the answers, indicators will be no, right? So there are many more, but these are some of the indicators that tells us that from a maturity perspective, you could be at different levels. Now, some organizations have implemented some sort of automation, and they want to move to the next step, which is really use the AI technologies and stuff like that. But again, overall, there are enough indicators and maturity levels that we track with the organizations that we work with from a services coding perspective. But Ron, you might have a different take on the PSA and backend system side of it.
Yeah, it's actually very similar to what you're describing, Mahesh. We often run into organizations where the only way the organization is moving forward is heroic actions of individuals. That's a bad way to run your business. Yeah. And so, that really is your level 1 of maturity if you're trying to get to a level 3. Excel is king in a lot of those organizations. And again, those Excel spreadsheets are siloed. They're out of date the minute they're updated, and they're often fraught with error. So I would agree, automating the service organization, the project financials are often very manual. Being able to tell you how much time did we enter and converting that time into invoicing, or have we completed our milestones, and having that be automated, is really moving you to a much more mature organization. Again, less manual, less built on heroes, but more based on systems. So I think it's a lot of the same, questions, a lot of the same processes that we see that could absolutely gain from improvement in what we're talking about today.
Yeah, point on. Absolutely.
So a lot of great insight information here. I know we're coming up at time. So with all of this, Mahesh and Ron, I would like to hear, what are the 3 key takeaways for our audience today? Ron, I know you touched on this a little bit a few minutes ago, but just want to bundle it all up for our listeners today.
Yeah, I would say you have to be cognizant of the end-to-end system requirements and treat each system as an extension of all the systems that are needing to be communicative with. And then sales, if you're including your sales, and you're including your PSA, and you're including your finance systems, HR systems when you're thinking through the process, you're going to be much more prepared to handle, the growth, the efficiencies that we talked about earlier in the conversation. So I'll say, well, I won't highlight three. I would say there's inside of that recommendation, there's a lot of different opportunities for improvement.
Awesome. And then Mahesh?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, number one key takeaway is if you are using Excel or if your peer group is using Excel, I think it's like you are still using BlackBerry. Hopefully everyone knows BlackBerry story and not saying I'm too old, but BlackBerry is gone, and if you are using BlackBerry, you're not going to get any service and you are going to be left behind, right? So if you're using Excel, it's like using BlackBerry, just move off of it ASAP, right? Number two is as you do that, I think connecting the services coding and PSA, or the middle office and back office as we call it, will be the most important initiative that you would be undertaking in 2024. And that's something that if you are not already thinking, that's going to be something that's going to be critical for you as the organization. And third, selling services will only become more complex, and on back of that, you will need an automation which provides the easy configurability, scalability, agility, and so on and so forth, right? So I think services quoting automation is an initiative that you cannot kind of put off any longer. Would be my third key takeaway for the audience.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Mahesh and Ron. Super insightful conversation, and thanks for just taking the time to share that with all of us today. So, and thanks to the audience. If we didn't get to any of your questions, we'll make sure to follow up. Definitely want to stay on time. I know the craziness of the holidays and Thanksgiving. I'm sure everyone's got a lot to do this week, but yeah, we really appreciate it, and we look forward to speaking and working with you, and feel free to reach out with any additional questions that come up. But yeah, thanks again, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you so much, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yep, same. Thank you very much.
Thank you.